Hey guys, thanks for coming out tonight to engage. What we're going to be doing is looking at the best way to really build a speaker's business. And I know a lot of you guys are interested in that, or you would not be here. Now, I do tend to teach from a non-traditional standpoint. I've been looking at a lot of products that are out there today, a lot of things that are being promoted right now, and they're good. There's a lot of great information out there. It just seems to me to be a lot of work. And let me sidebar real quick. I actually love to work. I'm not one of these people that says, hey, let's just do nothing and just make a bunch of money and let it roll in. I don't think that actually exists. I love to work, but I like to work smart. And I definitely don't like to do a lot of things that make me uncomfortable. And the traditional speaking route, as far as I'm concerned, can be a little bit exhausting. The always mailing things out or trying to chase down leads or trying to find a gig and compete against another 100 speakers that are already out there. All of that really is tiring. So we're going to look at that tonight, an alternative route, and we'll see where we need to go from there. So my name is Paul Evans. If you're not familiar, a lot of you guys came from a promotion that I made on Facebook, and I really appreciate you guys coming out tonight for that. Because of that. And so I began speaking at the age of 12. That's when I gave my very first speech. Much to do, much to love, much to hope for. And I still have the index cards to this day, in which I am now the young age of 46. I got paid to speak by the time I was 16. At age 24, some of you like Lori know that my wife passed away in my arms. And from that tragedy, I took the message and what I learned and went to insurance companies and began sharing the message of how they could really serve their clients. So that was really the way that I got started in what we would label professional speaking. I've given over 2,500 speeches and presentations. I've helped over 35,000 people become speakers. I don't ever say that I'm a professional speaker. I usually say that I'm a conversational speaker. The way that I'm talking right now, if we were in person, I'd be talking exactly the same way. I don't get on stage and change my voice, my cadence, my rhythm. I might just be a little bit louder, maybe even a little bit more hyperactive, but for the most part, it's exactly the same. And to me, that's about being conversational and not going up and performing or putting on an act or anything along those lines. I just don't believe in it. 10,000 is my fee, and I'm a non-celebrity. Nobody really has heard of me outside of my circles. I don't really care about that because if you get known within a certain element or market or niche, then you can have all the business that you want without really having to do too much promotion at all. So we're going to look at some of those things tonight, and hopefully we'll give you some ideas, some insight, some direction to go. Now, how many of you, if you'll answer this, how many of you right now are full-time speakers? If you're a full-time speaker and getting paid to speak for a living, just type in yes into the box right now. I just want to see how many we have. Just type in yes right now if you are making a full-time living as a speaker. Okay, so type in yes if you want to make a full-time living as a speaker. Type in yes if you want to make a full-time living as a speaker. All right, excellent. That's great, Mark. Yes, with coaching, adding the coaching element. We're actually going to talk about that some tonight as well. I think that's great insight and a great way to approach it. And then how many of you are just like, I just, wouldn't mind getting paid to speak, and I wouldn't mind speaking being an avenue for extra income. I don't have to make my full-time living here, but I wouldn't mind getting paid to speak and making extra money that way. Type yes in if that happens to be you. Not necessarily full-time, not even maybe even part-time. You might just do one talk a month or something. All right, a lot are hitting that level. Okay, good. Excellent. Hey, Yvonne, good to see you. Hey, Shelly. All right, so traditional speaking. I'm not going to beat up on it too much, but I want to say that I feel like it's fairly difficult. And I still see a lot of this out today. For the most part, in traditional speaking, what we do is that we put together our speaker kit. We put together the elements that we're going to send out, or we're going to send to people, send to meeting planners, and we're going to impress them somehow, even though they may not know who we are. And somehow our speaker sheet and our sizzle reel or our keynote that we send them is going to impress them more than everybody else that they've already seen, and hopefully we will get that gig. That's kind of the traditional format, right? I think that for the most part, This has been done for years and it's still done today. I'm part of several online speaker groups, and people are always asking, how in the world can I get more gigs and how can I get paid? And almost every single time it goes back to those basics of a one sheet, of a speaker packet, of contacting the meeting planner, etc. And even though I help people with those things, I'm not sure that I've ever mentioned this out loud before. I don't know that I don't generally tell people this because it doesn't seem right. But I've never, not one time have I sent out a one sheet. Not one single time have I sent out a speaker packet. Not one single time have I sent out a sizzle reel, a speaker reel. I actually got one made because at one point I thought I need that thing. And I don't know why, because I'd already been speaking for over 10 years and had never, ever used one. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need those things at all. So hear me clear on that. I'm not saying that they're not useful, but they're tools that are used to chase. They're chasing tools. They're tools that we're using to try to convince someone that they need to hire us. I think that that's hard work, personally. I think it's difficult work to talk somebody into hiring you as a speaker if you don't have like a lot of evidence that you deserve to be there. I know that's tough, and some of you right now will go, wait a minute, I don't have a lot of evidence. Paul, don't dash my dreams. Actually, I don't think it's that hard to get speaking gigs if you go about it the right way. But the whole challenge of sending out stuff and hoping to impress somebody enough that they hire you is extremely challenging when you could take a completely different approach and really get a lot of gigs, make really good money if you're willing to bypass some of the traditional methods and you're willing to expand your definition of speaking. For most people, when they think about speaking, they're thinking about the stage, and that's part of it. It's a component. And when they think about speaking, they think about being in front of a large crowd, and that's part of it. But understand that speaking, more than anything else, is simply a delivery system. It's a delivery system for your message, and that message can take place through standing in front of a crowd. It can take place on a podcast. It can take place in a blog post. It can take place with a book. It can take place with a lead magnet or a handout, right? Speaking is just a delivery method for the message that we have. And when we elevate the stage as the number one element of speaking, then we're always going to be limited somewhat in our income and in the comfort level that we're going to have as a speaker. Whereas if we look at speaking as a delivery method, if we see it as a way to share our message, at least just one component of it, then we're going to open ourselves up really big to be able to have some alternate modes of income. Even as Mark mentioned earlier, that, yeah, he wanted to speak, but he also wanted to combine that with coaching. And I'm going to tell you, there's so much more money in that type of framework and that type of business model than simply saying, I'm going to get on stage and speak. It's definitely possible to make a lot of money as a stage speaker, but to really become wealthy and to not have to stay on the road all the time, you have to have a bigger model than that. And so we're going to look at 5 shifts tonight. Now, I want you to take notes, get a pencil and paper out, because I'm going to have a lot of things that I'm going to be covering. A lot of it will be on the screen. Some things won't be on the screen. Just make sure that you're taking those notes. And I'll take some questions either along the way or at the very end. So we want to make some shifts. And the first shift is this, that we want to shift from simply making points, getting on stage or doing a presentation and making our points, to being focused on IP. And IP is your intellectual property. It's that thing that makes up your knowledge base and what you've created and what you know more than anything else. What I'm sharing with you right now really is IP. It's intellectual property. It's things that I've created and I've experienced, and now I'm packaging in a way to be able to share this knowledge and hopefully help other people become better because of it. Everybody has their own IP if they'll just sit down and look at it. Often with speakers, what they tend to be thinking about is, I've got a speech. I've got to go make this presentation. I've got to do this keynote. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to take my intellectual property and I'm going to package it in a keynote. I'm going to package it in a presentation. I'm going to package it in a book. I'm going to package it in a webinar. I'm going to package it in a teleseminar or teleconference. It's totally different, because if you're just looking at it as a speech, you're going to limit its impact. You're going to limit its influence. You're going to limit its income. But when you're looking at IP, now you know that you've got something of substance to anchor an entire business on. Now, I will beat up on us as speakers a little bit. There's a lot of ego in the speaking market. There's a lot of people that get really upset if somebody tells the same story as them, or makes a similar point as them, or happens to mention the same movie that they mentioned in the speech, 10 years ago, and they feel like everybody's stepping on their content. Listen, we got to even move away from content and move into intellectual property. So this is what separates you from everybody else out there, because now you're teaching something that nobody else can just rip off, because it doesn't sound like anything that anybody else has. So this is actually the wall of my office. And those are those giant Post-it notes. So this is some of my intellectual property. Now, some of this is for speaker training. Some of this is for my personal development training. But all of these are things that I work on or put together to be able to implement certain models in the lives of other people, so that they can, have a shortcut, do things easier, and follow somebody else's pattern and system. So, like right there at the top where you see process, partners, and plan. So I talk about the process in a person's life or business, and I'll talk about the plan, and in between those is the vision. If you got partners in a plan, in between those is accountability. And if you got partners in a process, then you've got motivation. And then there in the middle, the sweet spot, is where all of that comes together, and it ends up propelling you forward, instead of you always having to search for that energy, right? So all these are just part of my IP. Now, another part of that is the funnel builder that those that are in my program get, and it's how to get people onto your list and move them through a sequence. Those who are part of my Achieve program go through this process of helping them understand where they want to be, where they are now, and what's holding them back. And then also those who are part of $1 Million Keynote have the video flow that helps people create 5 to 7 minute videos with specific outcomes. So what is all of this? It's IP. It's not simply that I'm creating a speech. I'm creating intellectual property that is useful, is going to set my material apart from everybody else's material, etc. Right? So you need to be doing the exact same thing. Here's why. You want to move from points to IP, because now you become known for knowledge. You're not simply known for giving a speech or telling a story. You're known for knowledge. Secondly, you're known for innovation. One of the worst things that we can be labeled as today, even though people still say they want to be this, is being a motivational speaker. Whereas today, most people want a strategic speaker. They want somebody that comes in and innovates, that brings something new and fresh, and may take what has been stagnant and what has been in place for years and suddenly reinvigorates it and makes it strong, or makes it new and makes it useful again. Known for results. When you're known for being able to get certain results, then you don't have to worry about chasing business. Business comes to you, because you're already known for this result that you give. And we're going to be talking about in another point exactly how you become known, but being known for results. Being known for systems, so that people can come in and step by step, whatever it is that you're training on, or you're teaching on, you're presenting on, you're speaking on. And it's not that they simply leave feeling good, but they leave equipped for a change. That they can go out and actually do something and become different. Not simply feel different, but actually become different, because you've given them a process to be able to make that change. So these elements are critical to move from simply a speaker that produces some points to a speaker that comes in with IP, with intellectual property, because you've got something that's going to be lasting and it's going to be stationary forever. All right, so that's IP. Any questions about IP before we move on? Any questions about that? Type those in real quick if you have any, and we'll move on to the second shift that we need to make. It's really a big difference. There are a lot of speakers out there who are doing a great job speaking, and they're entertaining, and the audiences love them, but they don't have a long-term business because people aren't continuing to seek them out for that knowledge that they shared and expressed. Yeah, I sure can, Deb. Let me see if I can back myself up here. Here we go. I have to go through these real quick. All right, so known for knowledge, innovation, results, and systems. All right, type yes, Deb, when you've got it. All right. So Shelley says, so regular speaking is like informing, while IP is like assisting in transformation. Yeah, I love that. And you're speaking my language, Shelley. That's dead in line with what I feel. You know, there's information, and then there's implementation or installation, and then there's transformation. So yeah, IP is stronger because you're not simply informing them, even though that's part of it, and you're not simply entertaining them, but you're actually equipping with things that you own, that people want to know more about. Good. All right. Awesome. Moving forward, you want to move from promotion to publishing. Promotion to publishing. Almost every speaker out there spends a majority of their time promoting, meaning they're chasing after business. They're trying to figure out a way to get in the mailbox or email box of the meeting planner, right? They're promoting all the time, but publishing is different. Who is this guy right here? Type it in if you know. Who is this? All right, a stream coming in. John Maxwell. John Maxwell. John Maxwell. John Maxwell. When is the last time, do you think, that John Maxwell sent out a speaker kit? Maybe never. I don't know if he's ever sent out a speaker kit. Now, he probably has one, but I don't know that he ever sent one. Deb says 1979. You know, I don't know that he ever had one. Why? Because he's published. Now, when I say published, I'm not just talking about books. But he's not out there promoting in the regular sense of, I'm going to just put a bunch of packets in the mail and I'm going to do follow-up phone calls. He's publishing from the standpoint of he is out there putting out books. He's being interviewed. He's got videos on YouTube. He's got articles that come out on his website. Somebody else, obviously puts together for him and puts on his website. But he's out there publishing. He's not out there promoting. So you might be thinking, well, I'm not John Maxwell. Well, why not? You don't have to be one of the top best-selling authors of all time, but you can be publishing. You can be in online magazines all you want. You can be published constantly. You can look in your market and you can find out what your people are reading and get published. That's going to do a lot more than buying an ad. It's going to do a lot more than sending a packet to somebody who doesn't know you that you're going to convince that you're worth being known. Online magazines. Go to Blog Talk Radio or to iTunes. Find out who the most popular podcasts are in your area, in your arena, in your market, and then contact them. And if you're uncomfortable about, promoting yourself in that way, just get a friend and say, hey, would you mind emailing, go to this website, email them and let them know I'm available for interviews. Because now you're in the information market. It's not like you're sending out this speaker kit. Those folks are looking for people to interview all the time. And how much better, how much more impressive is it to go to somebody's site and they say, in the past year, they've been on 100 different podcasts. They've published 50 videos on YouTube. They've been featured in X, Y, and Z online magazines. They've been featured in these offline magazines, and they released 3 books on Amazon.com. How would that feel compared to they've sent out 100 speaker packets to meeting planners? Nobody gets impressed by that business. Nobody gets impressed that we've sent out speaker packets, but they get impressed that we've been published. Nobody's impressed that we promoted. They're impressed that we got published. And even if you're going to run ads, and we'll hit this a little bit in the next point, but if you're going to run ads, it's not straight promotion because you're attracting people, you're pulling people towards you. Publishing is powerful because it gets you out there in the eye of people who you'd never be in front of and who have more power than a meeting planner. Who's more powerful than the meeting planner? The owner, the CEO. Let me sidebar a little bit. Some of you have heard me mention this before. You've got to be the CEO of your own company. You've got to go in talking peer to peer. You can't be a person that's in there trying to, quote, get business. You already own a business. You're simply deciding whether or not you're the right fit for their company. You know, when it comes down to the person writing the check, the meeting planner has to get permission. The CEO doesn't. If the CEO decides to have you as a speaker, guess who gets to say something against it? That's right. Nobody. Nobody does. So go in peer to peer. That happens a lot more at the published level than it does at the promotion level. When you publish, you move from invisible to unavoidable. If you are visible, if you're in the line of sight of the people that you want to be speaking for, or the people that you want to be invited by, then you're going to go from invisible to unavoidable. Whereas you can send out speaker packets all day long, but you're still invisible to the vast majority of people that you really want to be contacting. I'll tell you why in a few minutes. You're going to move from pandering to positioning. From just being another person that comes up, hey, I want to speak. Y'all got the speaker open? To positioning so that you got this firm presence, this strong presence in the marketplace. You're going to move from entitled to invited. I can't tell you the thousands of speakers I've talked to who are like, if they would just give me a chance, I've got an incredible message. I mean, it's really incredible. Every time I talk, people say, it's incredible. I should be speaking everywhere. You know, that's an entitled type person, right? Instead, we just need to be invited. Have people who are interested in us, who invite us to speak, instead of us having to go out there and feel like we should be speaking. And then you move from who to you. You know, have you ever been somewhere and you spotted that celebrity and you're like, that's them. That's them, right? I recognize them. You know, even with John Maxwell, everybody here may not know who John Maxwell is, but the majority of you did. You guys started typing in his name like crazy. Why? Because it wasn't a who, it was a you. It was recognized. So when you become published, whether that means, again, magazines, podcasts, books, getting on radio, getting on television, if you're in any of those scenes, you've got different leverage points than simply sending out materials. Any questions about publish before we move on? Any questions about publish before we move on? I'll give you just a few seconds to type that in if you have one. And then another question is, do you see the power of publishing versus promotion? Do you see the power of publishing versus promotion? What stands out with that for you? Just type something in on that. Deb says, I self-publish versus a publisher. You know, Deb, when it comes to that, the world at large doesn't really know. And in today's world where anybody can get published and be self-published, there's still a lot of credibility in it. If you become an actual bestseller on, let's say, Amazon, I mean, a real bestseller, not, I found this obscure category, sold one unit, and now I can call myself a bestseller. I mean, you're literally selling thousands of copies, then yeah, there's not going to be a problem at all with that. Nobody's going to be bothered by that. In fact, often just having a book is one of the best business cards that you can ever have. If it was me, if I was going to send something out, I would not send out a one sheet or a speaker packet. I would send my book and sign it and let that be it. and then maybe follow up just to see if they got it or something. But for the most part, that's going to do a lot more than a regular packet. So self-published does work. A traditional publisher, you're not going to make a lot of money from it unless you're a Maxwell and you've got so many titles out, but it's still great to be commercially published. It's a great credibility tool. So Lori says, how do I find podcasts related to what I do? I've got my first book on Amazon. What's the best approach to find podcasts or radio shows that appeal to my audience? For that, Lori, you could actually type in the name of your market, podcast, into Google. Name of your market, podcast. You're going to get a bunch that come up. Go into your market on iTunes and see who's on there. Find out what the name of the show is, who the host is. Type that into Google, find out where their website is, follow up. Often they've got a number or contact information, right there on the actual show itself. And you can also go to Blog Talk Radio, look for your niche in that, and do that as well. Yeah, Shelly, it can be a planned strategy. She says, I need steps to follow so I don't get lost in the process. It really comes down to how you feel like you function best. Somebody like me, I love to be interviewed. It's super easy for me. I don't mind it at all. And so that would probably be my avenue. Whereas if you love to write, then you might do magazines, you might do a book. You don't have to do all of it. I would just focus on one or two and let that be the driver. All right, let's keep rolling. You want to move from attacking to attracting. And by attacking, I mean you're getting out there and you're going crazy trying to make all these contacts and you're networking and you're being a little bit of a pest because you're just trying so hard. You're almost desperate, and people can smell that a mile away. On the other hand, you can attract people. And when you attract them, you're going to draw them towards you. You're going to pull them toward you. Those of you who came here because of Facebook, you got my perfect speech. I know perfect one sheet, the perfect one sheet handout. And so, that was attractional to you. You saw that and you moved toward that. That's attracting. There was information that brought people my way rather than me going out and really being forceful. It makes a big difference. So you want inbound instead of outbound. You want things coming to you instead of you always having to chase them. Now, you may have to chase a little bit. That's part of the process. But when I first got started speaking to insurance companies, I called up a buddy of mine who's in insurance, said, hey, I need to come speak for your people. What have you got coming up? And he told me, I said, all right, you're in charge of getting me booked. And so he did that. And so then he said, I'm going to get you the name of the guy that's in charge. I said, I don't want to talk to him. He said, you got to talk to him. I said, get him to call me. Because see, an inbound call is so much more powerful than an outbound, right? Inbound makes a tremendous difference when somebody is reaching toward you than when you seem to be reaching toward or tracking them or chasing them down. I can tell you that the few times that somebody gave me somebody else's name and I could call them up and say, hey, Joe gave me your name, said that you got an event coming up, not near as successful. I gave up that early on because it's so much more powerful if Joe says, here's who you got to get, here's his number, call him right now. And then I answer the phone to talk to them. They've called me. I've not called them. Totally different energy, totally different leverage. The phone rings instead of stings. When the phone's ringing on your end or your email box is lighting up, that's totally different. It stings to call somebody and, Joe told me to call you. Okay. So you got an event coming up? Yeah, he did mention that. What's your name again? That hurts, doesn't it? It hurts to call somebody and they have to be reminded of who said what for you to have placed that call. Whereas nobody calls you and says, hey, I just had this number from Joe, wanted me to call you for something. You got any idea what? Nope. They've done their research. They've talked with Joe. They've got the information and they know who you are when they call you. It's so much better and so much more powerful. Sold instead of cold. When it's coming towards you, when you're attracting, people are already sold. They already believe. They already desire. On the opposite side, if they got to figure out who you are and what you do and what you talk about and what your angle is and why you want to be at their event, it's cold. And you can feel the barrier on that type of contact. You can feel them pushing back. On the opposite side, when they're already in agreement, boom. Example. So, and actually, my insurance guy's name actually is Joe. So, Joe told me that they were having a kickoff meeting. This was just last year. I'm still doing this, guys. It's been, since my mid-20s, it's been over 20 years. I'm using the exact same approach. So he calls me, said, we've got a kickoff meeting. I think you'd be good for it. I said, who's in charge? He said, a guy named Michael. I said, well, call Michael and see what we need to do. So he calls Michael and he says, we're just going to have breakfast. Let's have breakfast in the morning. So I went and met them, and Michael, says, hey, we really want to have you at the kickoff meeting. Michael's never heard me. He doesn't know if I can speak or not. Joe said I could speak. Joe said, you got a powerful story. We want to have you at the kickoff meeting. Okay. Worked out the details. That afternoon, I get 3 emails from people that say, hey, we want to have you at our event. So I call the first guy, or actually email him back. And remember, it's still inbound. They emailed me. I said, well, how'd you hear about me? He said, I was on a conference call with Michael this morning. He said that you were going to be doing their kickoff and said you were the best speaker he had ever heard. Michael never heard me. What's going on? Because Joe validated me, right? And stood in my space there and said, you need to have him. Michael didn't need a one sheet, didn't need a video, never heard me speak, hired me on the spot, and then went and told other people, and I had 3 more gigs that day. They were all sold instead of cold. Whereas if I'd said, hey, Michael, do you happen to have the name of just a handful of insurance agents who might also receive value from this talk? I'd like to follow up with them. That'd be insane, right? Totally different feel. Wanted instead of waiting. When it's coming toward you, when you're attracting, you're wanted. If you're out there attacking and chasing, you're waiting. You're waiting to see if they open the mail. You're waiting to see if they're going to return the email. You're waiting to see if they're going to return the call. You're just waiting. It's a waiting game. People tell you it's a numbers game. For every 100 packets that you send out, you can expect a return of X. I don't like that. I want to be closer to 100%. And the way the 100% happens is that it's being brought to you instead of you going out there and chasing it. Any questions about that before we hit the next section? Is this making sense? If this stuff is like making sense, just type in a big yes. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Good. I like that. Hey, Carol. Good to see you on here. Absolutely. Yes. Excellent. Good. All right. So, this stuff, I'm not making it up. And I know that it's not the format that most people teach, but it's highly doable. So moving from busting to building, from just busting it and chasing gigs and pursuing the next thing to building your audience. I think that this may be the most important point of the night. Here's why. If you're just speaking on stages, you've always got to have another audience, or you've got to return to the same audience for the next event. But when the gigs dry up, your audience dries up, and your income dries up. Let me say that again. When your gigs dry up, your audience dries up, and your income dries up. On the other hand, if you don't have to go searching for an audience, but you've actually built your audience, it reverses the whole thing, right? So I've got this number out of just one of my autoresponder accounts. I've got 3. So this is my Aweber account. I've got 74,348 subscribers. With my other accounts involved, I don't know what the number is, but it's not much higher. It's probably like 78,000 or something. So it says total subscribers, but I'll look at this number as my audience. This is my audience. These are my people. These are the people that I get to share my message with. Now, do I step on a stage with them? Maybe a handful. But for the most part, my stage is email. My stage is webinar like we're doing right now. My stage is audios that I might send out or articles that I might send out. All ways that I'm going to present my message to my audience. So let's say that I've got a gig that I get paid $5,000 for, $2,500. The average speaker out there is making about $500 a speech. And I do one of those and I don't get another one. What happens? Man, I've got to find me another audience and another audience, another audience. But when the audience comes to you, when you've attracted the audience and you've built the audience, you get to go to the audience anytime you want to. And you get to host all your own events. And I don't just mean physical events. You can do those. But even what we're doing right now with a webinar, you could book one a week, have a venue every week. I usually say the difference in this is like a band that goes on tour and a band that builds a theater. So Aerosmith goes on tour and has a 18 city, 20 city, 50 city tour, and they got to pack it up and they've got to go to the next auditorium, right? The next arena. Or then you got a place like Branson that decided, hey, if you're an entertainer and you want to build your own theater, you build your theater, you camp out here, we'll bring people to you, right? That's owning your own audience and selling your own tickets. And so if webinars or live events or teleseminars are your stage, then you sell tickets to your own events. So I've got these 75,000 people. Some of those are really interested in personal development. So I can sell them Launch Your Year, 5 Stones High Achiever System, Achieve Productivity. I can host those live if I want to. Do live training, send it out to that list, fill up my auditorium, and get paid from my house. I love the stage. It's fun, but it's not critical for a leveraged speaking business. It is critical if that's going to be the only way that you make money is to step on a physical stage. Otherwise, build your audience. Almost every speaker that I talk to says the reason that they want to speak is not just income, but impact, that they want to impact the lives of people. Let me ask you this. Is it better to be on the road 200 days a year speaking, and maybe in those 200 days, you end up, speaking to 20,000 people, all that body wear, all that travel, worn out, hotels, eating out all the time? Impacting those people that way is great, but you could also impact, or at least I could, 75,000 people almost instantly. From right here, it's still an audience, and it's still about impact. If they're interested in speaking, I can sell the perfect presentation, paid, $1 million keynote. If it's online business, I show them how to create a product, how to create recurring income with simple 6 figures, or how to discover who they are and how to become a superhero. So all of these things are possible if you will build your audience instead of always trying to find a new audience. Now, even if you're speaking on the stage all the time, you still need to build the audience. You still need to offer something in the live event that they will put in a number, text to you, and then put in their email, and they get on your email list. You've got to have that as minimum. So build your audience. So how are we going to do that? It allows us instant contact so we can email them anytime we want to. Instant audience, they're always available. Instant income, I could send out an offer right when we're done tonight and make some money without leaving the house. Instant bookings. This is one of those things that like the purists don't like. If I book a webinar like I did tonight, I'm booked. I'm booked. It's on my calendar. The people that have the theater, the bands that have the theater, just because they don't leave and do an all, 50 city tour, are they still booked on those dates even though they own the venue? Yes, they're still booked. They still have to show up. They still have to perform. So if I decide that I'm going to book a webinar a week every year, I've already got 52 bookings for the year right out of the gate. And I can tell you this, that even if I booked myself, if I publish a speaking calendar, it looks a lot better to have 52 bookings on it than nothing. Purist out there with no bookings. I get tickled. There's a bunch of guys that I'm really close to, and they make a lot of money in their industry, and they call themselves speakers. And I'll look at their speaker calendar, and they've got like 3 dates for the year. I'm like, dude, shut it down. Just don't even put your calendar up, or book yourself. Put some dates up there of your own venues, your own things that you're promoting and what you're hosting yourself, right? So instant bookings when you've got your own audience. Instant partners when you're building. Because when you've got people that you can contact, guess what? Other people are interested in telling others about you. Because you've got an audience. How do a lot of people get these commercially published books today? Most of the time, they've got an audience. They look and find out that you've got 10,000 people on your Facebook page. A friend of mine has 100,000 people on Twitter. And even though, that's hard to measure the results, this person got a book contract because of those 100,000, because they had an audience. It created partnerships. Your audience will do that. And you've got an instant stage. Anytime that you want to speak, you get to speak. And all you've got to do is send a message out to your audience, and you're there. Come back and see. Yeah. So before we hit these points right here, any questions about that, about building your audience? Any questions about building your audience? Before we hit number 5. Any questions about building your audience? Give it another few seconds. All right. So anything, let's move on. And then finally, you want to move from your podium to your process. Podium to process. And so here's really my process. You'd create your own, right? You create your own process for your people. But this is what I take speakers through. You need to attract. So this ends the chasing. It selects your market easily. You know exactly who you're after. It increases visibility and impact. You think about the number of ads that you've seen like on Facebook, and then they're using retargeting and they chase you everywhere. I know it's a little creepy, but the truth is it increases visibility and impact. And a lot of those things you didn't opt in for, you didn't chase after the first time, but by the 20th time you saw it, you're like, wow, maybe I need to check this out. It was still attracting. Secondly is acquire. You're going to fill your venues at will. People that are eager to hear from you. People who are willing to pay. And get this, there's limitless seating. You pull them into your email list, email them all that you want, and you've now got a process in place. Then admission. This gives you the ability to showcase your ability. It establishes credibility. It gets you paid. It redefines speaking. And then ascension. Creates dependable income, anchors your business, draws the best high-level clients. So I'm going to come back to this in just a minute. But when you've got a process that you're following, it creates confidence versus doubt. You move from feeling like, I wonder if this will work, to knowing it will work. Even as I talked about building your own audience, and emailing them or setting up your own dates, most of you went immediately, yep, I can see how that would happen, right? So you're confident about it. Even if you don't have all the skill set yet for that, you still see how it's very possible. You go within a framework versus guesswork. Framework versus guesswork. When you got a process, you're not out there with hit and miss. You're just following the formula. So a framework such as attract, acquire, admission, and ascension is a framework. It alleviates what do I need to do next, and it gives you what to do next. It gives you a position of high fee versus free, which is ironic, seeing that I was doing this webinar free tonight, and I was actually thinking this afternoon, this may be my last free webinar. And you know what? I've got every right to do that. I've got an audience that is more than willing to pay for events. You will too. When you've got your audience, there'll be those that just want the free stuff. Fine. But you'll have others that can't wait to pay you for your IP, your intellectual property. So it's going to move you to the high fee realm versus free. Now think about it this way. Sure, let's say that you want to get paid $1,000 to speak, and you feel pretty good about going and getting that. So you get on a plane, takes you a half day to get somewhere. They put you up in a hotel for the night, get you a meal, speak the next morning. Maybe you're back the next night. But you get $1,000 for 2 days away. Some of you may be thrilled about that. Or what if you had a $97 webinar that you sent out to your audience and you sold 10 and you made your $1,000? And you sold it to 10 people that the next time you host something, they'll probably show up again and maybe bring a friend. Or what if you were offered $1,000 for 2 days, but you stayed home, did your own event, and sold 25, and now you've made $2,500? Or what if you sold 50 and you made $5,000 for never leaving your house? See, this is the thing that gets me about speakers, is that they're often out there begging to get paid. How do I move from free to fee? Trying to beg people who say, we don't have a budget for that. Can't even get $500 out of them. And they could be building their own audience and charging $100 and never leaving the house. I'm not against that. Not personally anyway. Others are like, I've got to get on the stage. Not me, because you can speak just as well from your house. Constant versus chasing. When you've got your own audience, you've built it, and you've got a process in place, then it's constant. It's predictable. You're not having to chase the next gig. You just create the next gig. It makes it so much easier. So I call this thing the presenter's profit matrix, to attract, to acquire, admission, and then ascension. So this is what I teach. This is what I take speakers through. Now, what I would do is show you how to create something similar for your market. You're not going to have the same process, but you take your IP, your intellectual property, would package it together, would put it together, and would make sure that it fit you. But it's a process. So speakers see this and go, I see exactly how that'll work. Now, your market might see this and go, I don't even know what this is. But speakers get it, right? Your market will get your process. It will make sense to them. You build your audience, and then you can create income and create events all that you want to. All right, so any questions about moving from podium to process? Any questions about moving from podium to process? And any questions in general from tonight? Good. Shelly says all this makes sense. All right, so if you have any more questions, go ahead and type those in. Now, I don't have anything I'm going to sell you, but if you want to go to the next step to see if might be a way that we can work together, You can set up a 10 to 15 minute call, and what we'll do is get clear about what's possible for you, for your impact, your income, your influence. I have people all the time say, "Oh, here's my topic. Is it even possible to make money with this?" Okay, so let me time out real quick. The reason I'm not selling a system right now, or even that 4-step process that I just showed you, is because some of you may not be in a market yet that you even need that. So I'm not going to go and sell somebody something that they're not even going to be able to utilize. So the key is to, first of all, find out if you're even in a profitable market. So we're going to get crystal clear on that. Secondly, I'd love to hear your story, what your main focus is, what your main goal is, and your main origin. I mean, what's your background? Where are you coming from? What's valuable that you're going to be sharing? What's your message? And we'll talk about your IP some, and you may not even know what that is. Yeah, we'll do all this in 10 to 15 minutes. An action plan. We'll spot the gaps in your process, and we'll find out where you are right now. And we'll say, okay, this is what you need to do. Some of you are going to say, you know what, I've already built an audience pretty well, but I'm not hosting my own event. So we'll talk about that. Others of you will say, I don't have an audience at all. How in the world do I get an audience? All right, so we'll talk about an action plan for that. Customized direction for your new leverage business, saying this is the step that you've got to take next. This is the critical next place for you. You'll leave excited, confident, and assured that you can elevate your business fast. We'll do all of this in 10 to 15 minutes. And if you're interested in getting on a call with me, go to milliondollarkeynote.com/session. milliondollarkeynote.com/session. Book in a time. It's first come, first serve. I've got just a couple of spots left for this week. If those fill up, then next week will open up automatically, and you can book a time then. All right, so I'm going to answer any questions that come in. Where it says, what's the easiest way to take an audience you are speaking to and get them on your list? So I'm assuming that you're talking about at a live event, or even if I'm on a podcast, or I'm on somebody else's webinar. If I want to make them my audience, or as we often say, get them on my list, on my subscriber list, then usually what I'm going to do is one of two things. I'm either going to put a URL out like this, milliondollarkeynote.com. I may say, hey, go to milliondollarkeynote.com right now, and I want you to sign up for my $1 million checklist or whatever I'm promoting at that time as the free giveaway. And just tell them that, Lori. Let them go there and check it out. Another option, which is increasingly popular, is to use some sort of like text to list type mechanism. And there's a lot of different ones out there. I don't have a particular one that I recommend, but I know that Call Loop does this. It's who I've used. And what you do is that basically you integrate your autoresponder with text messaging. And so you might say, text the word yes to this number. They text the word yes, and then they immediately get a reply that says, cool, put in your email and press send, and I'll send you X immediately to your inbox. They put in their email, they press send, they get a message back that says, check your inbox for the message. The subject line will be X. So they end up on the email list, and they get the free thing that you're giving away. So a lot of people utilize that. It works a little bit better, I think, at live events than just handing out a URL, because people will write down a URL and say, I'm going to do that later. But most people on their phone will text immediately. In fact, if you just go, hey guys, we're going to take a quick time out. How many of you would love a copy of the slides that I used tonight? And a lot of people would go, yeah. You know, they'd all raise their hand. Okay, if you want a copy of the slides that I've been doing, then text yes to X number, and then, you know, it'd be the same process again. So giving away your slides is usually pretty good, or giving away a free checklist works out real well also. Hope that helps, Lori. All right, so if you want to talk about where you are in your speaking business, tell me a little bit about your story, find out where you need to go from here, go to milliondollarkeynote.com/session. milliondollarkeynote.com/session. You'll fill out just a brief little info page, and then you will be put forward to my booking software, and whatever times are available, just grab that and you'll be set. All right, any other questions for tonight, guys? What's your number one takeaway? I want you to type in your number one takeaway, number one aha moment. What was the thing for you that made the most sense? The thing that you want to concentrate on, or at least try to learn more about? What was that thing to you that you went, that's it. Yep, that's what I need to be doing. Type that in right now. All right, keep coming, keep on coming. Got publish, not pursue. Stop chasing, no doubt. Absolutely. Intellectual capital, brilliant. Thank you. Build your list and be known for knowledge. Being interviewed equals being published. You can reach a great audience and not have to travel. Interviews, not speaking. Wow, powerful. Best presentation so far this year on speaking. Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. Good, guys. I hope this is helpful. Hope it propels you forward a direction. There will be a replay, so I will send that out to everybody that's on the list. So you will be getting the replay, and also this will be in there as well. So anytime you're ready to set up a session, I'd encourage you to do it sooner rather than later. Most people procrastinate and just don't ever fulfill their dream. And I would certainly love to help you set any of this up. Create your speaking business and help you build your own audience. It just makes life so much easier. Thanks. It says, thanks for sharing your time and information. Look forward to talking to you later. And another insight, promotion versus publishing. Hey, guys, thank you so much for coming out tonight. So appreciate it. As always, success is not an accident. And speak with passion, or just leave me a note.